US President Donald Trump has met with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz at the White House. The two leaders held talks as the US-Israel war against Iran intensified, pushing oil prices to the highest levels since 2024. Trump stressed the war and trade deals would be a key discussion point. Merz, after his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, arrived in Washington aiming to strengthen the partnership with Trump and support Germany's raised defense spending. The visit comes as Germany and France plan to deepen cooperation on nuclear deterrence in response to Russia's threats and the feared instability from the Iran conflict. Listen in.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. We have a meeting with a man who's become a friend of mine, and we've known each other for a little while in some very interesting times, and we get along. Our countries get along very well. We have a great affinity for each other. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
We have to talk about our trade agreement, which I would like to be in place as soon as possible. And we have to talk about Ukraine. There are too many bad guys in this world, actually, and this is an issue we have to talk about because we all want to see this war coming to an end as soon as possible. But Ukraine has to preserve its territory and their security interests, and well.
We're now being joined by David K. Johnston again. Thank you, David, for joining us back here for this. Can US and German cooperation on these issues help stabilise transatlantic relations, or does domestic political pressure in each country complicate the consensus?
Well, certainly domestic pressure complicates things. All politics ultimately are local. But Chancellor Merz arrived in Washington with a very complex portfolio and with a very small needle he had to thread. First of all, he needs a trade deal with the United States, but he made clear to Trump that Germany cannot sign a trade deal if Trump continues his statements that he will have nothing to do with Spain. It has to be with all European countries. And this matters a lot to Germany, which is an export-driven, high-quality manufacturing economy. About 1 in 7 of the luxury cars built in Germany are sold in the United States. So it's a very important source of foreign earnings for Germany. Secondly, Merz, you noticed, was very carefully calibrated in what he said about the war in Ukraine. He made it a point not to mention Putin. He only implied there was a bad guy there, and that's clearly to Merz, Putin, because the Europeans and the Germans in particular need to keep Trump on the ranch with regard to Ukraine. And they're trying to find out in Europe how they can get Donald Trump to stop pushing Kremlin points about occupying parts of Ukraine that the Russian army has been unable to capture and holding on to the parts they have. So Merz was trying very hard, and I thought handled himself very well today in not enraging Trump, not stirring up Trump's animus and anger, and also not in any way upsetting Trump about the fact that, you know, Trump is just an appallingly ignorant person who has no deep understanding of any of the world issues in which he is, by default, the biggest player.
And does aligning on the Iran crisis suggest a deeper US-Europe strategic partnership, or are there still major policy differences to resolve?
Well, there is a deep concern among the Europeans and the Canadians about keeping NATO together, despite all of Trump's efforts to undermine NATO. Secondly, Merz has clearly stated that the German government is not going to in any way be involved in this war. So, for example, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has allowed the use of military bases for refueling for aircraft attacking Iran. Merz has made it clear that won't happen. Now, Trump says that the U.S. has access to some military assets in Germany. Well, yeah, we have big bases there. But Merz is making it clear we're not saying to the Americans, you can take off from Germany and go drop bombs in Iran. Similarly, the Nordic countries have said the same thing. They will have nothing to do with this. So you're seeing the United Kingdom, France under Macron, Merz come up with slightly different positions about this, but all of them want to avoid being drawn into what looks to be a protracted war over Iran.
Thank you so much, David, for joining us here today on NewsX World. It's a pleasure speaking with you. According to reports, the US financial services industry is on high alert for potential